don't have the exact numbers, but it was goals conceded versus goals scored, and the goals conceded was like in the 40s and 50s, and goals scored was like, I don't know, 17 or 16 or something like that. Now, I'm sure I've gotten those a little bit wrong, so you can hit me up on Twitter and tell me I'm talking shite, whatever. But the point given is that when we go into Europe, our defence is a worry. It wasn't always that way, because we had a different type of manager. It was a different era, and we had different squads under guys like O'Neill, and maybe even to an extent, Strachan or Lennon or whatever. But now things have changed, and the amount of money that central defenders are going for, and talented, cheap central defenders are not easy to come by. So the club is in a difficult position, but I think that we have to ask ourselves the question, well, a couple of questions we have to ask ourselves. And if Yompe was here, I would have asked him this, but he's not here, so we'll just pretend that he's here, and I'll try and answer it as best as I can. My first question was, as a club, have Celtic progressed? When you see your club play at home against a side like Anderlecht and go through that Champions League run that we've been on, you got to ask yourself, have we progressed as a club, and have we progressed as a squad? As a squad, are we any further forward? Now, I would say to the first one, yeah, I think we have progressed as a club, and it's fairly clear. Look at our domestic record in the last few seasons. Look at the manager that we have, a guy who handles himself very well in the media. He's obviously excellent in man management. I think he's improved our staff. I think we've probably got much better coaching staff in there. We've got Lee Congerton there for recruitment. So I think, and Chris Davis as the other guy that's there, and I think that's I think we've got some excellent staff at Celtic, and I think as a club in general we have definitely progressed. We've made the Champions League 2 years in a row. Our finances will be up. The feel around the club is up. So absolutely anybody who would sit there and say, no, we're no further forward under Brendan or whatever, I'm sorry, but you're talking shite, because the club are far better than they were last season. That's a given, right? Personally, that's a no-brainer. Now, if you ask yourself a second question, which is, have we progressed as a squad? I would have to say, I don't think so. I think we've got some individual talent, young talent, that's potentially very exciting, but in terms of the squad, I really don't think we've progressed that much. And the reason I say that is because you look at last year's Champions League run, and I'm talking about Europe here. On a domestic level, it's a different conversation, but this is a conversation straight after the Anderlecht game, so please keep that in mind when I make these points, guys. I'm not making this as a general point. Domestically, our squad is the best in Scotland, and it's very, very good. That's clear to see, right? Saying over 67 games unbeaten, you can't argue with that, and I'm not about to, because I'd be an idiot if I tried to. But we're talking about Europe, and let's face it, guys, that is how a lot of fans will judge the club. Ultimately, is how successful are we in Europe? That is the expectation at Celtic. We are a European club. We are expected to compete at the highest level, not necessarily succeed, but compete. And we talked about that on the podcast last week. I said, what do Celtic want to be? Do they want to be a Champions League club? Do they want to be? And we'll get into that. But when we look at the squad that we have, and we look at what they did last season in the Champions League, we were taking Man City toe-to-toe. Yes, we didn't do that greatly against Mönchengladbach, but we were a bit unlucky. I don't think we performed too badly in one of the legs. We certainly didn't turn up as we should have at home, but I think when we went away, we did a little bit better. And for me, the whole run last season in the Champions League seemed to be, it was exciting. Those Manchester City games were exciting. The Mönchengladbach games were kind of disappointing, and of course Barcelona, well, as Barcelona. Although when they came to Celtic Park, it was only 2-0. We didn't get hammered like we did this year by PSG. Now, if you look at this year's results, obviously we get absolutely annihilated by PSG. We've covered that in the previous podcast. If you want to go back and listen to those podcasts, you're more than welcome. If you want to put yourself through that, I wouldn't, but you might want to help us bump our numbers up. But yeah, PSG, we get taken apart, and that's a given. I think it's a given in Europe. You're going to come up against a super club, and it's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. But it's how you perform in the other games, and it's how you, I guess, to an extent, how you learn from being taken apart or how you learn from those heavy defeats against the super clubs. How does the squad react? How does a manager deal with it tactically? That's something that we have to look at. And if you look at this season, we went out to Bayern and it was a very difficult game. No one gave us a chance, and sure enough, we really just fell apart there. At home, completely different. A very exciting game at Celtic Park, and that was what was most disappointing about the Anderlecht game, is that I would have expected Celtic to take that same passion, that same fight into the game against Anderlecht at home, and they didn't do that. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see Celtic take Anderlecht on at home with the same guts and the same fire in their belly, and it just never happened, and that was really disappointing. But throughout the whole campaign, if you were to compare last season's Champions League with this season's Champions League results and everything else, I don't think we're any further forward, really. Going in, if you ask yourself, off the back of that run and that Anderlecht game and the way that the squad have played in Europe, going into the Europa League, if you feel that the squad are any better this season, and if you're confident about going into the Europa League up against some of the teams that we're going to draw, and there's some big teams in the Europa League this year, you've got the only answer that I can find for myself is no, I'm not confident, and I don't think we're that much further forward. As I said, the club have progressed. Yes, domestically, absolutely fantastic. Yes, we've gone into the Champions League twice, fantastic. But in terms of our European performances, looking to Europe, ask yourself, are we going to succeed in the Europa League? Can we go on a run? Listen, it was not that long ago we were talking about we can go on a run in Europe here. After the Anderlecht game and stuff like that, we were like, if we play like that, we can do really, really well. But now we've been beaten at home with that sort of performance at Celtic Park. No way. If that team go out again and give that sort of performance again in the Europa League, we're not going anywhere in Europe. We'll be home very quickly in the Europa League. So I think, when you bring up points like that and you look at Brendan's squad and what Brendan's been doing with the squad he was given, and that's pretty much what's happening here. Brendan has pretty much been using the same squad as Dyla's, right? And that shows fantastic man management on his part. For a guy like Brendan Rodgers to take that squad and do what he's done with it, pretty much, is amazing. It really is. The problem I've got with what's going on at Celtic at the moment is our transfers, how we're signing players, and what we're doing to build a successful team, a team that's structured, a team that has the ability to function in different areas. And what I mean is a team that's varied, a team that has variety in terms of the type of players that we have. One of the issues I've got is we seem to be signing an awful lot of young players. Now, we know the business model at Celtic: get young talent in, develop it, sell it on. Fantastic. It's worked in the past. We've seen it in Van Dijk and all these other guys that have come, Big Vic, Wanyama, right? How could I forget Big Vic? Right, we got Big Vic, we got Virgil van Dijk. These guys were amazing. Bought them in, no one knew them. Now they're down in England, household names in the EPL and going for big bucks. Fantastic, I love it. But I think that Celtic need to start focusing in on getting a little further on in terms of their targets, their signing targets. If you look at the players we've got at the moment, we've got Kouassi at the club, Encham at the club, Edward, Roberts, and we almost, for our central defensive issues, signed Rafael Coetzee, who couldn't come from a South African club, another young defender, probably very talented, but couldn't do it because he was injured. Now, Kouassi isn't really getting the game. Edouard isn't really getting the game, but shows a lot of potential. Roberts has been injured and is not finding his form. And, these players that we're signing aren't embedding themselves in the squad and are becoming mainstays. And part of the problem is that it takes time. It takes a long time to get these players in, to get them up and running, to get them to the point where they can play European games and we're confident in them. You throw young guys into big European games and it can be disastrous. We've all seen it before, right? Sure, there are exceptions, and absolutely, we've got guys like Kieran Tierney who is older than his years, but even then we've seen guys like Kieran Tierney have the odd hiccup in Europe because it's a higher level, and you need to have a bit of savvy. You need to have a bit of seniority, and I think that come January, given what we've seen, and given the comments from Brendan, and given some of the press releases, and given the result at Anderlecht, and the fact that the club expects, or the fans will expect, European, maybe not success, but the club to make a good show of it going into the Europa League, I think we're going to see some changes. I'm hoping for January transfers. I think it's time we sign some more senior players. Number one, I would say central defence is a must. We must get a central defender in. I would like us to sign somebody who is a bit older in the years. I'm not saying he has to be 35, Kolo Touré style, whatever. If need be, fine. If there's another Kolo Touré who's still got it, go and get him, I say, and have him for a year. That's no problems. Kolo Touré was a great signing for us. Okay, he didn't play the whole season, but he had a good effect on the club. So can Celtic do it again? Sure. Should they? Absolutely. Why not? But can we get guys in who are maybe not 19 and 20? Can we maybe get someone who's, just get a little bit more savvy and has a wee bit more experience? I really think that the board need to do that. They need to step up and give Brendan what he needs to go forward. Now, again, this is all based on Celtic's success in Europe. I'm talking in terms of European football here. I'm not talking domestically. Domestically, Celtic can probably put out a youth team and romp it. I mean, we can. We're just that far ahead of everybody else in Scotland. I'm talking about how we go in Europe. And the club, like I said before, they need to decide what they want to be and how do we structure our transfers going forward. And that's the next thing I want to talk about, is how do we approach our transfers? Do we approach transfers for the SPFL? Do we approach transfers for Europa League only? Do we structure our transfers, or do we go out and sign players specifically to try and go as far as we can in the UEFA Champions League? Do we want to go for the glory? Do we want to go for the big run at the big boys and try and go as far as we can, last 16, or who knows? We need to decide what we're doing, and at the moment what we're doing seems to be, yes, it's financial because a football club is a business and it needs to run as a business, and I get that, but also it's a sport, it's a game, and you need different types of players in a team, and I think you need players with experience in a team. And if you look at some of the players that we've got at the moment, it's not good enough for me at that European level, which is again what we're talking about, the European level. So for me, really would like to see a central defender brought in, and an experienced one at that, and maybe another one. If you want to bring in another young Virgil van Dijk, fine, bring him in, but it's got to be better than what we have, because we need to see improvement. That's what you need to do at a club, constantly be improving. Brendan Rodgers would be the first person to say that. That's what every football club strives to do, season to season. You've got to improve as a squad, and we haven't done that in Europe. So we've got to look at the players we have, and if they're not performing, move. So central defence is first. For me, that's what we've got to do. Looking at the midfield, Armstrong, for me, I think at the end of the season, he may go if he keeps it up. He's not good enough. He's completely off the pace, and he's a wasted shirt. McGregor is a talent, but again, I think as the seasons go by, he'll be more and more consistent, and he is great at certain key games. He's a good talent, and I'm glad he's in the side. Kouassi, I just haven't seen enough of Kouassi. I mean, this is the problem I've got, is I just don't know enough about the guy, and I want to see him going on a run. And there's a few players that I want to see going on a run, but certainly Kouassi, we need to see him in more and more. For me, Encham is no doubt, that boy is a talent. I mean, he can pick a pass, man. Can Encham pick a pass or what? Holy shit, can he fucking ping a ball, man? He can put it right on a fucking dime. He is amazing, man, at doing those long passes up the pitch. He was great coming on against Anderlecht. He scored some good goals this season. He shifts the ball on quickly. I like him a lot. I really do like him a lot, and I think if Brendan keeps working with him, he could be another fantastic talent for us. So I think he deserves a regular place now in the squad. Personally, I think he deserves a regular place in the squad. Do we need to sign another midfielder? Probably not. Not in January anyway, but come the end of the season, we might have to. I'd like to see an out-and-out attacking midfielder. It's funny when you look at Rogic. such a talent. I mean, amazing what he did for us last season in the final, and he scored some amazing goals. But again, there's a player who isn't starting every week. Now, I might call me old-fashioned, and I know that football's changed, but I like to see players starting every week and playing every week. That's how you build chemistry in a squad, as you get the same guys playing again.